This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
According to our correspondent in Beirut, 2 Fatah members were killed in clashes that erupted in the Ain al-Halwa refugee camp south of Sidon in southern Lebanon. A source affiliated with Fatah movement confirmed that 2 of its members were killed and 2 civilians were wounded after they were ambushed by gunmen from the Jund al-Sham group. Meanwhile, Fatah deployed its fighters in the camp and demanded that Jund al-Sham hand over those responsible for the attack. A meeting for the Palestinian Follow-Up Commission is underway in Ain al-Halwa in an attempt to contain the situation. Ahmad Arif, the Secretary General for Fatah movement in southern Lebanon, Arif added that while Fatah wants to keep the plight inside the camps political, some groups are trying to transform it into a security issue. على حد تعبيره.
يظهر أن هناك جهات أصبحت شبه معروفة تستغل بعض الأفراد.
It seems that some groups which have become known to us are using some individuals or groups to steer strife inside Palestinian refugee camps. For a long time, these groups have operated inside the Ain al-Halwa and the Ta'mir camps, and lately inside the Barid camp. They want to transform the Palestinian refugee plight into a security issue. However, all Palestinian factions within the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, and all political and Islamic blocs want to keep the refugee plight inside the camps political and national. Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon must maintain their motto, which is the right of return. They must continue to play an important factor in the stability and peace of this country.
تبقى هذه المخيمات الفلسطينية عامل أساسي للاستقرار والسلم الأهلي في هذا البلد.
Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah backs MP Michel Aoun's demand that the next president be elected by the people. In an interview with an Iranian television yesterday, Nasrallah explained that his ministers resigned from the cabinet because they were not satisfied with the government's work and not because the group opposes the International Tribunal. For his part, head of the Lebanese forces, Samir Jaja, warned that some parties would try to hamper the parliament session assigned to elect the president. Yemna Tayara reports.
Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah rejected a proposal for the United Nations to establish an international court into the assassination of Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri. In an interview with the Iranian Al-Alam television channel, Nasrallah said, quote, "We say no to the establishment of a tribunal under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter." Nasrallah also accused the majority of relying on the American project, a project which, according to Nasrallah, has failed. He added that Hezbollah favors the idea that the president be elected from the people, a suggestion earlier proposed by Nasrallah's ally, MP Michel Aoun. He stressed that Hezbollah already nominated its candidate and would reveal his name in the future, adding that the majority of the opposition backs Aoun. Nasrallah criticized the government, saying that it was hampering the compensation process of the victims of the war. On another note, Nasrallah denied that former Arab-Israeli lawmaker Azmi Bshara had ever spied for the group. Israeli police said earlier this month that while Israel and Hezbollah were at war last summer, Bshara, who has resigned from Israel's parliament, passed on to Hezbollah sensitive information and suggested ways of causing more harm to the Jewish state. And for his part, former Minister Wiam Wahab echoed Aoun's demand to have a presidential election straight from the people. He added that Aoun was a serious candidate for the presidency. He meanwhile said that the 7 points of Premier Fouad al-Sannura were useless, accusing the Premier of being the ally of Ehud Olmert. Head of the Lebanese forces Samir Jaja warned from hampering the parliament session during which a president would would be elected, Jaja revealed that some parties were getting ready to do so by saying that they will not take part in the session in case consensus was not reached over one candidate.
Iraq's tragedy continues to unfold and the violence continues to travel daily from one place to another. It seems that the ongoing U.S. and Iraqi military operations and security raids have failed to spare the lives of Iraqi civilians, as was the case today in the Bi'a neighborhood in Baghdad. A booby-trapped vehicle exploded in a busy market in the Bi'a neighborhood, killing more than 30 Iraqis and injuring 80 others. In addition, 6 police officers were killed in a suicide bomb attack on their station in Samra. Meanwhile, the U.S. forces carried out a series of airstrikes in Sadr city. Meanwhile, Ayman al-Zawahiri, the second man in al-Qaeda organization, said that Iraq made a historical trap for the U.S. forces. Zawahiri made fun of the U.S. President George W. Bush and invited him for a glass of juice in the cafe of the Iraqi parliament. He also expressed regret over a U.S. congressional bill linking war funding with a timetable for the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq because it will make his followers miss the opportunity to teach an unforgettable lesson to those he described as savage Americans and Europeans.
This bill reflects American failure and frustration. However, it makes us miss the opportunity to destroy the U.S. forces which we caught in a historical trap. We ask Allah that they will not be able to get out of this trap until they have lost 200,000 to 300,000 of their soldiers. This news will teach an unforgettable lesson to those killers in Washington and Europe. This lesson will motivate them to review their doctrine and moral system.
The White House declined to comment on Zawahiri's tape. However, the White House President George W. Bush asked the Democratic-led Congress to draft a new war funding bill and warned that new violence will break out in Iraq if the funds are not quickly secured. Bush has vetoed the first war funding bill. The 2 million Afghan refugees who fled to Iran are facing a tragedy with no end in sight. They have fled a country where peace has been lacking for decades. The fact that they speak Farsi and are willing to work for low pay does not seem to help them. Today, Iran started deporting tens of thousands of Afghan refugees to their country, which can't provide them with shelter. We leave you with Ahmed al-Bahrani from Iran.
The issue of the Afghan refugees in Iran resurfaced because Iran has decided to deport hundreds of thousands of them for violating immigration laws. The ongoing tragedy at the Afghan-Iranian borders is a stain of shame in the history of humanity. Tens of thousands of Afghan refugees continue to flee their war-afflicted country, others are forced to go back, and the rest are forced to live in these miserable tents. Afghan refugees living in Tehran do not fare better, a reality evident in the kinds of jobs they perform. Habibullah has been working as a shoe shiner for 7 years. He is documented, but he is very saddened by what is happening to his people in Iran.
I'm forced to do this job because I have no other choice. I've graduated from high school and I wish that I could attend university. I'm very saddened because my people are forced to leave Iran.
Ali is a construction worker. He told us with pride that he sends part of his income to his family in Afghanistan. He also told us about his ordeal.
I have been living in Iran for 7 years. I have not gotten married yet. I am a stonemason.
This is the tragedy of Ali, which represents the tragedies of 2 million Afghan refugees who fled from the war, warlords, and the coalition forces. They fled to Iran hoping that they can live there until the situation in their country improves. But recently, their hopes have been dashed as tensions return to their homeland.
The Mauritanian government quickly began to fulfill the vows it made 2 days ago to fight corruption and enforce the law on all officials, including the President of the Republic and members of the government.
فقد اعتقلت السلطات الموريتانية المرشح السابق للرئاسة ورئيس حزب الجبهة الشعبية.
The Mauritanian authorities arrested former presidential candidate and head of the Popular Front, Al-Model Sheikh Ma Al-Ainain. They also issued a detention warrant for Sidi Mohammed, the son of the previous Mauritanian president, Mohamed Khouna Ould Hidala. On the list of arrests were also 2 French businessmen accused of trying to smuggle 1.5 tons of cocaine into the country. The cocaine was discovered at Nouadhibou airport, unloading a plane that one of the businessmen was waiting for. Upon discovery, the plane took off in an attempt to escape, but it had to land in the northern Sahara of Mauritania, where it remains until this time. The Mauritanian authorities who searched the area said that an international mob had been trafficking drugs through the airports and seaports of Midna and Nouadhibou. They also suspect that a prominent government official is involved in this case.
Economists and construction contractors believe that the walls that will be built in Iraq under the Enforcing the Rule of Law security plan will cost $100 million. This comes amidst warnings that these additional costs may burden the Iraqi economy without leading to any tangible security results.
The walls that are being built in Baghdad promote sectarianism, divide its neighborhoods, and burden the country's economy, which is already exhausted by corruption and lack of security. A number of Iraqi parliament members acknowledged this reality. They said that building walls around Baghdad's neighborhoods will use a big part of the national budget. They also said that the large sums of money that are being used to build the walls can be instead utilized for more important projects. Officials from the Interior Ministry told foreign newspapers that the separation walls will not end the violence in Baghdad and that the funds allocated for building the walls from the defense budget are enough to finance an elite unit in the Iraqi army. Most of the agencies of the Defense and Interior Ministry lack basic technical equipment due to shortage of funds. What makes matter worse is that these funds are not being spent to strengthen the Iraqi army. Instead, they are being wasted on building walls. These walls will have little impact on a situation which the residents of Baghdad have gotten accustomed to. More than 10 neighborhoods in Baghdad and 40 others in Iraq will be isolated by concrete walls.
عسكرية مسلحة أجدى بكثير من تبذير الأموال في مشاريع لا تغير شيئا من الواقع الذي اعتاد عليه البغداديون، فهناك أكثر من 10 أحياء ستعزل في بغداد بجدران إسمنتية إلى جانب 40 حيا في بقية محافظات البلاد.
Economists believe that the 5-kilometer-long wall that will be built in Adhamiya will cost $10 million. This means that the 10 walls that will be built according to the new security plan will cost $100 million, not to mention the cost of the barbed wires that will cover these walls. Economists also believe that this is a waste of public funds because the need for the walls will end as soon as the Enforcing the Rule of Law security plan ends. This huge loss will further deplete the exhausted Iraqi economy. The cement walls that zigzag around Baghdad neighborhoods are noticeably spreading. It took 2 years to build the 5 meters high cement wall around the green zone. The wall was completed in 2005, the same year the American embassy was built. Thousands of cement barriers are spreading throughout the streets of Baghdad. They can also be seen around officials' homes, ministries, political parties, schools, and hospitals. These many walls have made Baghdad's neighborhoods look like isolated islands. It seems that the fate of Iraqis is to be surrounded by cement walls built with their own money.
قدر العراقيين أن يحاصروا بالإسمنت أينما اتجهوا وبأموال تدفع من جيوبهم المتعبة.
Good evening. In today's lead story, well, it has to do with local money matters. The shekel broke through the psychological 4-point barrier today to close at 3.998 shekels to the U.S. dollar in foreign currency trading.
A near tragedy in Sderot today as a terrorist-fired Qassam rocket narrowly missed a kindergarten. The Islamic Jihad claimed responsibility for firing the rocket that slammed into a house in the center of the beleaguered Negev city. Damage was caused to the home, and a 67-year-old woman who was inside the house at the time of the attack was treated for shock. Miraculously, there were no physical injuries and no children were hurt in the neighboring preschool because the attack occurred minutes before the children began to arrive. A total of 7 rockets hit Sderot yesterday, wounding 2 people. Since Friday, 11 rockets have been fired at the western Negev town.
And in the wake of today's Qassam attack, Defense Minister Amir Peretz warned the Palestinian terror organizations in Gaza that Israel's restraint would not last forever. Peretz was addressing a ceremony honoring employers who show consideration toward IDF reserve soldiers. At the same time, the defense minister said Israel should take advantage of the window of opportunity that was created following the Arab League approval of the Saudi peace plan. And Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni today cautioned against a hasty Israeli decision to invade Gaza over the continuing rocket strikes. Livni was speaking at a joint press conference following talks with visiting German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier. She said the government must not repeat the mistakes of the Second Lebanon War. Steinmeier, whose country holds the rotating presidency of the European Union, was in Jerusalem for talks with Prime Minister Olmert and Livni. Steinmeier invited Livni to discuss the Middle East peace process at an upcoming meeting of EU foreign ministers. He said, "I told Tzipi today that I'd like the Israeli foreign minister to seize the opportunity to present her views to the European foreign ministers one more time."
And the Knesset opened what's expected to be a steamy summer session today. 3 opposition parties from the left and right lost no time in tabling no-confidence motions in the government. All 3 motions focus on the stinging criticism levelled at Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and his government over their handling of the Lebanon war. 2 legislators from Olmert's own Kadima party and several more from his senior coalition partner Labour have said they will leave the plenum during the vote. But the government, which enjoys a comfortable 2/3 majority in the House, is unlikely to fall as a result of today's no-confidence vote expected later this evening. IBA's Sheila Zucker was in the Knesset today and brought back these reactions. It's glowing.
I believe that Labour should not be too eager to break apart the government or to take very hasty and careless steps. I think we should take cautious steps, that we ought to be careful, that we have to think twice before we do something by which, at the end of which, we will be out and somebody else, such as Netanyahu or Degel HaTorah, the Haredi parties, and Lieberman will take all whatever we are doing.
At the final report of Vinograd Committee, it will be at July, maybe at August, and then we will see if Mr. Olmert will finish his way in the as the Prime Minister or will be continuing.
Which way is the political wind blowing right now?
I think there's a lot of despair. There's a lot of there are hard feelings because people don't see anything happening really to redress the situation. Our expectation, certainly my own expectation, would be for the government to come up with a strong political plan to say, okay, we've made mistakes, but this is what we want to do.
Do you see the government falling before the second Winograd report comes out?
No, I don't see the government falling.
The lower house of parliament has passed a draft bill on fighting money laundering during the house's last meeting in its extraordinary session attended by the prime minister and cabinet ministers. Lawmakers made amendments on the bill. The house cancelled all articles in the law related to terrorism and its funding as they are included in other legislations. The government had put forward the draft bill to maintain a sound banking system and ensure a transparent financial dealing with various people as well as national and international institutions. The House also approved other draft laws that included the Housing Fund and nuclear energy. Turkish Foreign Minister Abdullah Gül said that he was withdrawing from the presidential election race after the Islamist-rooted AK party failed for a second time to secure a quorum in parliament. Gül, a leading architect of Turkey's EU membership bid, has yet to officially withdraw his candidature for head of state of the secular but predominantly Muslim country. Turkey is in political crisis after a wave of large secularist protests demanding the withdrawal of his candidacy and alarm in the military at the prospect of a former Islamist as head of state and commander-in-chief. The ruling Islamist-rooted AK party failed to obtain the presence of 367 members of parliament to be able to hold a vote on whether to elect Gül as president, because most of the opposition parties boycotted the session. A first-round vote was annulled last week by the Constitutional Court, which ruled that 2/3 of parliament had to be present for it to be valid. Parliament is now expected to call the presidential election process invalid. The next president is not expected to be elected until after the general election.
The Yemeni government, along with the Interior Ministry and tribal elders, formed security committees aimed at closing shops that sell weapons and confiscating medium and heavy artillery from the tribal rural areas. This has raised suspicion among some observers regarding the government's capability in implementing this and its intentions behind this campaign to confiscate weapons in Yemen.
After less than 1 month of its formation, the new Yemeni government, chaired by Dr. Ali Muhammad Mujawar, boldly decided to close all stores selling weapons, ammunition, and explosives. This long-awaited decision was a serious attempt to curb the dangerous phenomena that threatened security and plans for development. But according to some people, making a decision is much easier than implementing it, whereas some doubt the government's ability to face the consequences of trying to enforce the decision.
It's not enough for the government to propose a decision or create a new law. What's important is the implementation of this law. We will not all agree on this, but the spread of many weapons does not benefit our Yemeni society. On the contrary, it affects us negatively on many levels, and to be honest, some of these consequences have been disastrous to the Yemeni society.
There are several suggestions as how to identify methods of implementing the decision to ban the sale of weapons and ways to protect senior officials. However, the problem lies in the implementation of these suggestions in the tribal societies that take pride in their weapons. Other concerns include the losses incurred by the middlemen amongst officials and gun merchants, not to mention that, according to some people, relying on the government to enforce the law is a weak alternative.
As long as respect for the government is lost and the authority of the law is absent, you cannot convince anyone to give up his weapon, because the weapon in these circumstances is a way of protection.
A field study conducted 2 years ago found that the number of weapons in Yemen is about 50 to 60 million pieces spread out between the government, the tribes, and the markets. Closing gun markets is a good step towards reducing the dangers of weapons by limiting circulation. But the challenge remains in implementing the decision, which might be easy in the cities, but will present a much bigger challenge in the rural areas.
على كل فوز ساركوزي أثار كما رأينا ردود فعل متباينة.
Sarkozy's win has drawn mixed reactions among the public and the media. The French press described his victory and the defeat of his opponent, Royal, as breaking with the past and revitalizing the right in France. Other newspapers said the win of the right-wing moderate represents a new phase for France.
جديدة ستشهدها فرنسا.
عبر هذه الشاشة الإلكترونية ظهرت ملامح رجل فرنسا المقبل.
On this television screen, the features of the future became illuminated by the French President Nicolas Sarkozy. This face was plastered on the front pages of the French newspapers, which considered Sarkozy's win undisputed. The right-wing Figaro newspaper said that Sarkozy's clear victory will have a positive effect on French policies in the next 5 years. It added that the new president of the Republic will rely on the legitimacy that the voters granted him and that he must protect French interest. The leftists France Libération newspaper viewed Sarkozy as a legitimate president who was elected without hesitation. The European newspaper saw Sarkozy's election to the presidency as breaking with the past and revitalizing the right wing in France. The left-leaning British Guardian newspaper said that the French believe without a doubt that the essential solution for the years lost is to turn to the right. It added that the era of speeches has ended for Sarkozy. The Daily Telegraph noted that the new French president will give France a chance to enter the 21st century, considering that Sarkozy's undisputed mission is to make critical changes. The left Italian newspaper La Stampa said that Sarkozy reached the security zone after a long battle defending his ideas for the past 5 years. He succeeded in ending the rigid and right-leaning government under the Chirac administration. A new era began with violence and suspicions regarding the right-leaning camp. However, the next phase will be a test of how the right implements its campaign promises.
وفي ردود الفعل أيضا انتقدت الصحف الجزائرية انتخاب ساركوزي رئيسا لفرنسا.
In another response, the Algerian press criticized the presidential election of Sarkozy in France. The Chirou published a headline, "Bush Jr. is President of France." It published a picture of Sarkozy wearing a Jewish yarmulke, saying that the Jewish community succeeded in electing the first Jewish president in France. The Khabar, or news newspaper, said that the French chose an iron fist. The Watan, or nation newspaper, ruled out the possibility that Sarkozy would compromise and officially apologize to Algeria for French crimes during the times of colonialism. A Turkish newspaper expressed concern about his election. One of the papers published a headline, "Sarkozy is a new punishment, a blow to Turkish entrance into the EU." In Russia, the president of the Committee for Foreign Relations in the parliament confirmed that Sarkozy's election will not negatively affect French-Russian relations. In Australia, the foreign minister said that Sarkozy will be a good president. Meanwhile, the Taliban movement called on the government of the new French president to withdraw its forces from Afghanistan.
أو مدعوة لسحب قواتها من أفغانستان.
President Ahmadinejad told head of Iraqi Kurdistan administration Nichirvan Barzani the oppressed Iraqi nation can help the democratic government with the day-to-day running of the affairs. He added Tehran is ready to launch partnership with Baghdad in gas, electricity and water transfer projects. The Iraqi official, for his part, said Iraq's Kurdistan demands Iran invest in industry, agriculture and energy sectors in the Kurd-populated areas. Within an 8-year period, Iran will be listed among the countries which are in possession of technical know-how for construction of atomic power plants. That, according to Deputy Head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization for International Affairs, Mohammad Saidi, who also told a ceremony in Tehran's Teacher Training University that construction of a 360-megawatt nuclear power plant is high on the agenda of the IAEO. The Iranian negotiator added extraction work will soon get underway in Saqqant uranium mine in the central province of Yazd, while another uranium ore plant is operational in the southern city of Bandar Abbas. The EU foreign policy chief said Monday he wants to meet Iran's top nuclear negotiator again within weeks to discuss the deadlock over Tehran's nuclear case, but could take months to reach agreement.
And we have agreed already that the negotiation will not have an open-ended. The negotiation will have a limit in time by agreement of the two sides. That may be around 6 months period of time.
It comes after Javier Solana last held talks in April with Ali Larijani, who said at the time they have come closer to a united view on how to break the stalemate. The April talks held in Ankara, Turkey, were aimed at pursuing further discussions that could lead to a resumption of formal nuclear negotiations.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only.